I'm demonstrating how to make a Cat5e network cable for home computing, and first I'm going to go over the types of wire. I recommend you buy plenum grade Cat5e solid core. As you can see here, I've stripped some of the insulation off of one of the conductors, and it is just a single solid piece of copper underneath. Stranded cable, you can see there's strands of copper, and you want to be sure that you get the solid. The difference is when you bend the solid core copper, it stays bent. When you bend the stranded, it doesn't. A lot of the pre-built cables you get will be stranded, and they get good data rates. Done properly, the solid core can also get good data rates, and it's just a whole lot easier to work with. Next, you want to get some good connectors. These are Cat5e connectors, RJ45 type, specifically for solid wire, solid core wire. So this will go great with that solid core plenum wire I was just showing you. Okay, next are the tools. Here is the Cat5 crimper that I use. This will also work for Cat6. It's got a network crimp area, telephone wire crimp area, and then it's got a flat cable stripper and a round cable stripper. The round cable stripper for this demonstration is what I'll use. Try to get a stripper built into the crimper. This works really well. I wouldn't recommend using any other stripper. It does a really good job. On the other side, you'll see we've got a cutter, and that'll cut your wire. It's got good force, great cutter. You'll also need a good pair of diagonal cutters, and the only thing I use this for really is to cut the fiberglass string that's inside some of the cables. And if you're dealing in Cat6 cable, you can also cut away the plastic center using these. So these are really the only two tools you need to create the cable. Unless you're going to test it, then you should also have a cable tester. I won't demonstrate that on this particular video. Now let's get started on actual creating the connector end. First, we're going to strip away the outside coating. So we'll get to the stripper side of the crimper. We're going to put it in the round area, and we're going to use plenty of cable. Stick it in there a ways. Get a good 1.5 inches or so of outside coating removed. Go ahead and take the crimper to full crimp, and then twist the cable clockwise. If you try to go counterclockwise, you'll notice there is a corner on the edge of the cutting blade that will prevent you from turning counterclockwise. So you have to pay attention to whatever stripper you get. Some of them won't have this problem. This particular one does. But you know, whatever crimper stripper you get, you'll get used to it. After using it for a while, it won't be a problem. Next, you'll notice that after we've turned it through the wire stripper, there's just a real slight scoring of the outside coating, and if you just simply bend the cable right where that scoring is, the coating breaks and you can pull it right out of there. Now that's a real important note, that you don't want a stripper that cuts all the way through the coating. Then you'll get down into your conductors, and having any scarred marks on these conductors, on the insulation of the conductors, will have negative effects in both signal strength and physical strength of the cable. Next, you'll see we've got this fiberglass string. Just go ahead and cut that off with the diagonal cutters. So we no longer need the diagonal cutters, so I'm going to set them aside, and we'll throw away the string. Now for the cable order. You can read all the diagrams if you'd like, but I find it much easier. I've learned a quick pattern for having the cable order correct. It's going to go pin 1 on the left, and that's your orange white. So pull your orange pair all the way to the left and your brown pair all the way to the right. Next you'll notice you've got a blue pair and a green pair. So I'll then take the green pair and split it over the blue pair. White cable on the left, solid colored cable on the right, and the blue pair in the middle. Then we'll go ahead and open up the blue pair. Solid blue on the left, white, blue on the right. Now finally we'll go ahead and open up the brown pair and the orange pair, both of them with the white cable on the left side. And you'll notice when we go from left to right through the whole pattern, we have white, dark, white, dark, white, dark, white, dark. If your cable doesn't come out that way, then start over. Also, you'll notice my thumb and my index finger keeping a hold of the wire right next to the sheath or the outside coating. The reason for this is, well, as long as I got my thumb and my index finger there while I'm moving these things around, the order isn't going to change. And I squeeze real hard there. You'll notice my thumbnail turns white. Pushing real hard on there to make sure they don't move. So now you notice they've all got this little curve to them from being twisted together. We've got to get rid of that curve in order to put it inside the connector. So we'll just wiggle and work our way towards the end of the conductors. Then we'll start over. We'll go back to the outside coating and wiggle our way to the end of the connectors again. This takes two or three good attempts. You want to make sure that these wires are straight. If they're not good and straight, it's just going to cause you trouble when you're trying to go to the next step. So it's worth spending a little extra time to make sure they're straight. Okay, there we have it. They're straight enough. I'm ready with the connector. We've got our pins 1 through 8 in the correct order. And we need to cut off the excess wire. So I'm going to use the cutter on the crimper. And I'm going to use about a finger's width. I'm going to cut off the excess. I'm sure there's an exact standard here, but after doing this for a while, you get used to it. Also notice the wire sticking out on the far end of the crimper, sticking out of the cutter side. If you just put a single finger over those and bend them down just as you cut, they don't go flying, and then you can drop them off in a trash can exactly where you want, and no mess. So now we have our 8 conductors straightened and cut, and we're ready to put the connector on. Now pin 1 on the connector is all the way left when this tab is away from you, and the connector and the conductor ends are all pointed up. So pin 1 is all the way to the left. That lines up with the orange-white wire that is all the way to the left. That's pin 1. We stick the cable in the connector, and we want to push hard and make sure that the cable goes every conductor goes all the way to the very far tip of the connector. If it doesn't, that'll cause us trouble. So go ahead and put the connector in place. Put the connector in the crimper with the wire. Continue to push towards the crimper with the wire to make sure those conductors go all the way in while you crimp. So I'm pushing and I crimp. Crimp it a second time just for good measure, and you can then release it. Now we look it over really good. You can see that the outside coating is deep into the connector, goes to right about here, and that's very important. I'll show you an example of a bad cable. This one does not have the outside coating inside the connector. And as you can see, this makes for a very weak spot in the way the crimp-on connector sits. Highly not recommended you do this. You really want that outside coating in the crimp. There's a spot right here that holds that outside coating in place. So there we have it, one completed Cat 5e network cable connector end.